Todd Bowles officially announces that Baker Mayfield is officially the starting quarterback and makes things officially official. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
Your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome into this WTSP Wednesday episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listener view every single day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs. He is Evan Klosky at eKlosky. WTSP. You can check out my work as the deputy editor of BucsNation.com. You can check Evan out on 10 Tampa Bay and at 10tampabay.com. And of course, you can follow the show at Locked On Bucs on Twitter. We are here with you every Monday through Friday, along with our everydayers. And as always, we want to share our appreciation for your continued support of the show. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Dave Canales seems to have the offense forming to fit his vision, and a few of the Bucs that we're going to see on the field against the Ravens are playing for their lives. But more on that in a little bit. First, Evan, we have not gotten to sit down and do this since the preseason games started, but I had an episode last week where I was talking about Ira Kaufman's report of Baker Mayfield being named the starter. Someone in the YouTube comments called it, quote unquote, pathetic clickbait. Then I go on a rant in an immediate reaction live episode about how Kyle Trask did great, but Baker Mayfield is very clearly the starter. I saw your tweet from what you did on 10 Tampa Bay talking about, we all know the Bucs cards. You might as well flip them over. But finally, Tuesday morning, Todd Bowles mercifully ended the quarterback competition and named Baker Mayfield the starter. Right move?
Yeah. And great timing, right? I went on a whole rant. I did a whole piece on the fact that the Buccaneers really need to stop and just name Baker already. And then Tuesday. And I think here's what probably happened, right? Dave Canales from last year with the Seahawks said, I'm going to take this thing up until the final preseason game. It worked out so well. Here's the map. Here's the script. I'm going to do it just like I did last year. And then game 2 came around and Todd Bowles was like, we're not going to play Baker. Okay. So let me handle the media and you just, you handle the plays and take Trask throughout the first half, and we'll have Wolford for the second half. But once Wolford went down and he was forced to put someone back in under center, when he put Kyle Trask in, a player who just played the entire first half and said that Baker Mayfield was going to play and didn't play, and you wanted to see Trask do a 2-minute drill, but the O-line came out, blah, blah, blah. Whatever you said, it didn't make any sense. It all was a lie. Like, it just was and I think, you want to tell Kyle yourself, and I understand all that stuff, but sometimes it's like you can smell the BS. And it just got to a point where they were caught. They were caught showing their cards. And once Wolford went down, they had to, because if Wolford didn't go down, there probably would have been a little bit of this, if they were doing this equitably, the whole thing is like, we wanted to see Kyle Trask do a 2-minute drill. Well, that had to have been decided before the game, because if you were doing this equitably, then you would have known that Baker Mayfield should have been thrown in at the 6-minute mark when Kyle Trask did his 4 drives. And, good thing he stayed for the 5th because he threw a touchdown on that one. But if you were doing it the way that you scripted it and doing this as a pure, you get these scenarios and you get these scenarios and we're going to, it just, in the end, the lies were stacking up. So this is going back. I re-listened to Dave Canales' press conference in May when we asked him, lots of media members, about what his plan was for this quarterback battle. And Rick Stroud was definitely hammering home, like, isn't it silly to take away reps from your starting QB and so on and so forth? And, to Dave's credit, he said, no, I want to take this thing as far as it can go because I want to push both of my quarterbacks to act like, to think like they are QB1. And in that respect, that is absolutely what has happened, because even though we all have known that Baker Mayfield was going to be the quarterback, I've said it here multiple times, Ira came out and definitively said it. I think anyone worth their lick of salt knew that Baker Mayfield was going to be the QB. What Kyle Trask did was he always was fighting for how long that leash will be. Mm-hmm. And I think we all agree that Kyle Trask has impressed with his growth, with what he has shown us in the preseason, with his grasp of the offense. It's really hard for Todd Bowles to start Kyle Trask, because if it goes south and you got to put Baker in afterwards, that's a really tough look. How you went with the nobody who played, through 9 passes, whatever, versus the guy who has started 69 times. It's much easier for Bowles to go from Baker to Trask and say, let's see what the kid's got, versus the other way around. So I get it. There's a lot of Kyle Trask fans. I would go and say that this preseason battle wasn't for naught. He proved to the coaches that he can handle these duties, that they're not, absolutely screwed if Baker gets down with an injury or if the season, goes south in the first 4 to 5 weeks. And not to mention, I think Baker Mayfield is better because of it too, because he wasn't guaranteed anything. And there was a chance that if the gap was, distinct, and that if things were figured out, that, Trask would have lost, or Trask would have won that job and Mayfield would have lost it. So Baker had to show up every day and have that little bit of doubt. Like, can I lose this? Will I lose this? So I applaud Dave Canales in doing the quarterback battle. I kind of thought it was BS when I heard it in May or June, whenever that conversation was. I think seeing it play out, it worked exactly how he thought it would work. But now I think there is a benefit to Baker Mayfield getting 3 weeks with his ones, us seeing the ones all work together on Saturday, and moving forward in that direction, preparing for Minnesota.
Yeah, and it probably didn't hurt that Mike Evans threw a little bit of gas on the fire last week by saying, you know what, just tell us who the starter is.
Correct. And going back, if you listen, anyone can go back. It's on, the Buccaneers YouTube page. You can go back to that Dave Canales press conference. And he said back then, nobody needs us to name a starter. I guarantee you the offense doesn't need it, yada, yada, yada. And back then, agreeable. But when your star offensive player, the best offensive player in Buccaneers history, says, we'd like to know who the QB is already, pretty much. Unprompted, mind you, that he was not even prompted to say that. It's time. It's okay. It's time to now. Let's go. Okay, you got to listen to your players now. Let's get them moving.
Yep, no doubt about it. Well, what has Evan seen from the Dave Canales offense so far that has him encouraged? That's next on the Locked On Bucs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Bird dogs make you look good with stretch khaki shorts that are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and give you a truly sculpted look. They fit way better than regular shorts that are made of stiff, restricting cotton. Bird Dogs fixed this issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but stretches so you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. And Bird Dogs uses anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. Not gonna lie, this whole shirt and tie thing, working outside in the 100-degree weather that we've had, nothing makes me happier than coming home from work, getting rid of that nonsense, and putting on my Bird Dogs to chill, relax, and record this show for you all. So If you want to be like me, and I know you do, go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL or enter promo code LockedOnNFL for a free white tech hat with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL or promo code LockedOnNFL for a free white tech hat. You won't want to take your bird dogs off. We promise. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listener view every single day. Every dayers, make sure you are coming back tomorrow as David starts to look ahead to the final preseason game against the Baltimore Ravens, a team that he just finished watching as they lost to the Washington Commanders. That's right.
It happened, folks.
The streak is over. Did you know that the last time that the Ravens lost a preseason game, they finished the regular season 5-11?
Huh.
Things are looking dark for Harbaugh.
We'll go with that. We'll go with that.
All right. Well, as we've kind of already touched on a little bit, we haven't been able to have you on the show since the preseason game started. So this is the first time that you've really gotten to talk about, at least on Locked On Bucs, what you've seen through the 2 preseason games with the way Dave Canales' offense is working. And I had mentioned a couple of shows ago that I was really liking all of the designed rollouts and the design bootlegs and moving the pocket, moving the quarterback around a little bit, buying himself some time. Baker looked really comfortable in that situation against the Steelers. Trask didn't look great in the Steelers game, but then against the Jets, he really started to seem like he had a command and a grasp on that style that Canales was using. But Evan, what have you seen so far from this Canales offense that really has you encouraged for this upcoming season?
First off, that's an astute observation because I have a similar one. As I've done this now for a while, the best coaches are the ones that know how to adapt their style to the talent they have. That is something that we did not see with Byron Leftwich last year. I'm not trying to add fuel to that fire, but the fact is Byron Leftwich had his system. This is how we're going to run it, and I don't give a crap. Figure it out. And they stunk. And everyone knew it. They knew what was coming. They had all the answers to the test, and it created hell for his players. When Mike Evans is out there saying, I haven't been this open in so long, I forgot what it feels like, that just shows you how hard he has to work. The design rollouts, they're playing into what made Baker Mayfield such a good college player, right? Mm-hmm. Sort of that Lincoln Riley type of vibe. And so they're stealing some elements there. They're saying, hey, this is where you kind of became a first round pick. Let's get you back into those modes where you feel comfortable. I like the persistence to the run. I love when I hear, I believe it was Baker Mayfield, after getting named the starter. I've listened to so many press conferences these days, when he said, we have a lot of things tucked away that you haven't, essentially going like, we've been running our vanilla stuff. Mm-hmm. And we got things tucked away from Mike and Chris that we'll unload when we need to. And I like hearing that. I like hearing the fact of like, and Bowles mentioned it too, saying, most teams these days in the preseason games, you're seeing the bare bones foundational stuff from everyone's offense, which is why those joint practices are important, because you're going up against opponents you will not see this year, no tape out there, and you can kind of showcase everything and let it fly. So I've loved the motion. I love the rollouts. I love the balance between the rushing and the throwing. The rushing offense has actually been a pretty big disappointment.
You can say that again.
Which is, I've been a staunch supporter of, I believe in this offensive line and I think they're going to be better and they're deep and all this stuff. And then I've seen the last couple of games and kind of like, maybe the rushing attack isn't going to be great again. But we also haven't seen Rachaad White
We haven't seen the left.
We
side
haven't
of the
seen the
line
left
either.
side of the line. I was going to say we haven't seen Wirfs and Filers. So I'm still reserving judgment there. I have been pleasantly surprised with the pass block, the pass pro. But I kind of getting off tangent here. The offense has been balanced, and there have been plays that have been set up for the quarterback that is like, hey, this guy's open. Like, think back to that Steelers game. Trey Palmer, I believe, his first catch, and he got to the sticks for a first down. I mean, the play design told Baker, here you go. All you got to do is get him the ball. Like, I am going to make this guy so open for you that all you have to do is give him the ball. And that's what works so well with Canales' system is he sets you up. He's going to give you the same look. He's going to give you the same look. It's very Kyle Shanahan-y. And then, loop, when I need to, I'm going to okie doke you. And we're going to get a big play because of it. So that is, when looking at the all-22 stuff, I think there are a handful of times where I understand that he's layering things for the future. And that certain and that there are going to be times this year, I promise you as fans, you're going to watch it and be like, oh my God, throw the ball already, do this, do that. And you're going to have to be patient because it really is a chess match. And I can see the beginnings of that. And I can see the beginnings of being, I think Baker took responsibility in that first drive when he felt like he could have taken this team out of runs and so on and so forth, but got them into a different play, and Baker will have to be better. But I think they're going to run, they're going to try to wear you down, and they're going to use their rudimentary sets. They're going to keep it simple and allow their talented players such as Mike Evans and Chris Godwin to work in space and to really kind of drive this team forward in those gaps. So I'm very encouraged. I'm a little discouraged by the rushing offense, but all in all, it's a breath of fresh air after what we've been seeing with the offense last year and just the stubbornness to stick with the program when the program was clearly not working.
Yeah, when Byron Leftwich just used the preseason playbook all year instead of, actually saving things and utilizing, any play that worked ever. I'm kind of with you on the run game. I've talked about it a couple of times on this show now that I am less than impressed by Keyshawn Vaughn to the point that I don't think he he's not a sure thing for this roster.
That's a great transition into my segment 3, by the way. And I agree with you.
Yeah, but I like what I've seen from Chase Edmonds. I love what I've seen from Sean Tucker, but there are some bubbles that are about to burst in less than a week who can significantly help their chances to make the team this weekend. That is coming up next here on Locked On Bucs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. It is super easy to create a job post on LinkedIn Jobs, and you can do it for free. You add your job, and then you add the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you are hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you would like to interview and hire. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Wrapping things up here on a WTSP Wednesday edition of the Locked On Bucs podcast. James Yarcho, Evan Klosky, And like all good things, they come to an end. Bubbles will be burst. That's all you can say. This roster is going to get cut down to 53 guys in less than a week. And there are plenty of jobs still available that these players are going to be fighting for against the Baltimore Ravens. So, Evan, to you, who are the biggest players on the bubble that have to have a breakout game to really give themselves a chance to make the initial 53-man?
You mentioned it not so long ago, but I'm pretty concerned with Keyshawn Vaughn, and I get it. Early on in a lot of these games, the Bucs in general have not kind of gotten out to a very good rushing start, but he's I don't know. He's going to have to prove that they need him on special teams. But either way, he's, in my eyes, RB4. Even if he makes the roster, it's pretty much special teams and like break glass if needed. So to that extent, I think Keyshawn Vaughn and Sean Tucker, big game for those two. I think watching them, see what they do, I think that can really kind of solidify Sean Tucker as the heir apparent to Rachaad White if White ever goes down. And that's not to say that Chase Edmonds is out of the picture. I loved what I saw from Chase Edmonds in game one. I tend to believe that his role will be a little bit more elevated in 2-minute drills, third downs, and then you just run kind of Sean Tucker there as a first and second down back. So Rachaad White has probably more flexibility on doing everything in the midst of a game. I would say that there'd be a little bit more timeshare in a scenario, but for me, it seems like that RB position is, I'm going to be watching that. Also, because Russell Gage was put on the IR, you would assume that maybe last year they carried 7 wide receivers entering the season. You now wonder if they're going to go for 6. I would say that Kalen Geiger is probably the 7th, assuming that Rakim Jarrett is the 6th guy and has probably earned a spot on this team. So I would say that between Jarrett and Geiger, this is a big game for them as well. But I would probably say that Geiger's on the outside looking in, unless, again, there's some special teams sort of scenario. So then I look, where could that extra spot be allocated? Last year, Todd Bowles and company only carried 4 outside linebackers. My hunch is that's going to be 5 this year now, especially since Bowles has already talked about how impressed he's been and how this is going to be the toughest cut for him. So who are we talking on the chopping block here? We know that JTS, Shaquille Barrett, Anthony Nelson, and Yaya Diaby, they'll be on the team. Cam Gill is probably the leader in the clubhouse.
Yeah. I
think we all loved him last year before suffering his season-ending injury in the preseason. But I was really impressed with Marquise Watts last week against the Jets. And also Todd Bowles name dropped Charles Snowden, who had a good game as well, didn't play the first time around, I believe. So I believe that Cam Gill will be the guy in that of the 3. But those are 3 guys that I am watching very closely because they're in that discussion. And Jose Ramirez, to a degree, is also in that as well. Just haven't seen too much of him. So those are kind of and I will say David Wells. I'm very interested who tight end 3 would be. David Wells, Payne Durham. Do they think I think
it's got to be Payne Durham.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of, I need to see more of that tight end 3 stuff. I don't know. There's a lot more I got to see. So tight end 3, I'm kind of interested in. They might just keep 4 and say, screw it. We're going to keep David Wells and Payne Durham. They kept 4 last year. So that remains to be seen. They do have some flexibility here with some of the options at their disposal. It's just when you're building everything out, they are log jammed. I mean, right now they got to probably find a spot for Deidrin Sinat if they want to put him in there to have 7 defensive linemen. Then, you've already, if we put Cam Gill, you've already taken a spot from wide receiver for him. So to take Deidrin Sinat, you got to take another offensive position. So that would most likely be a tight end or an offensive lineman. You can put John Molsham back on the practice squad. Last year, he was elevated to the team full time. So I don't know. There's a lot of, they have flexibility in the trenches and at linebacker that seems like they're the most log jammed. And then at cornerback and safety is probably the thinnest that we're looking at. I mean, D. Delaney, I would have normally said, is a guy that I'm watching out for, but I think he's in. I think he's on this team for sure, considering how Bowles gushed about his versatility after Saturday's game.
Not only that, but I was just talking on yesterday's episode. I think D. Delaney's still in the running for starting slot. I have not been overly impressed with Zion McCollum. We know D. Delaney has played that position on this team in the regular season before. I don't think Zion's a lock for the starting slot. He's had some great plays, but he's also had some unbelievably bad plays. So, yeah, I'm with you 100% there. D. Delaney, to me, he's not only a lock to be on the roster, but I think he's still contending for a starting spot.
Yeah, I agree with you there. As far as the 53-man's concerned, I would say that Zion and D are locks. Because, again, Zion McCollum arguably is their best special teamers, one of their best special teamers, as Bowles in the past has kind of gushed about that. So, the cornerback 5, like Josh Hayes. I mean, because again, it's got to be a special teams guy. Like if you're gonna, carry 6 wide receivers, usually one of those wide receivers is a gunner. So you need to get somebody on special teams with this spot. So I have not been impressed by really. You said Zion. I mean, D. Delaney has done some really good things. Josh Hayes. I mean, we're not talking. I mean, the depth is thin. That's why, and I think that's why you saw them kind of make an addition there this past week to kind of say, hey, we need to bring in another DB, not only for this game coming up to make sure that we have everybody we need, but, I think they know that it's like, what do we got? And Christian Izien was out last week due to an injury. And between him and Nolan Turner, it's like that's a huge unknown too. It's cornerback and safety depth is a big issue. That's really, if they can't create pressure up front, and I know I'm getting off track here, they can't create pressure up front, they're screwed. Like they're big time screwed. So, they'll be fine when Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean can play all the snaps, but Carlton Davis is going to be out at some point. We know that based on his injury history. Then what happens? Like, yikes. So,
open prey.
But yeah, so as far as the 53-man's concerned, as I mentioned kind of those names before. Those are what I'm interested in following. And on top of just seeing how that first half is, seeing all the starters out there, seeing how they operate, making sure that all those silly penalties that we've seen in the past are kind of, off the table. So that's kind of it.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly did a great job in the penalty area from game 1 to game 2. Let's see more improvement from game 2 to game 3. But that is going to do it for this episode of Locked On Bucs. Don't forget, coming up tomorrow, David is going to start getting you ready for the Ravens game. Evan just gave you a lot of names to keep an eye on. Don't tell me preseason games are worthless. There's plenty you can take away from them. We tell you about those each and every week during the preseason. Lots of names to watch in that game. And yeah, it is going to be a lot of fun finally seeing the starters out there together. But before tomorrow's episode with David, I don't think he has a guest. I think he's flying solo on this one. If you have any questions, thoughts, ideas, reactions, topics, anything at all, you can drop those in the YouTube comments, or you can email us at lockedonbuckspodcast@gmail.com. Send a DM to Locked On Bucs on Twitter. We want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listener view every single day. Check out everything that Evan is doing on 10 Tampa Bay and at 10tampabay.com. Check out my work over at bucksnation.com. Follow everything on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JYarcho_Bucs, at eCloskey WTSP. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. Thank you so much for joining us right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.